the Anne Frank House graphic biography by Sid Jacobsen and Ernie Colon, and Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys all tell the tale of human atrocities, suffering, terror, sorrow, death, and even hope during wartime from the perspective of a young girl. Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. The author, Ruta Sepetys, traveled to Lithuania twice to conduct research for this novel. She interviewed survivors, family, and members of parliament to ensure she was obtaining the correct historical data. Ruta tells the story of a young Lena and her family's determination to survive the cruelties of Stalin's deportation of millions of Lithuanians. Living as a young girl in Lithuania, Lena had begun writing a letter to her cousin one evening when Stalin's hitmen invaded her home. Lena and her family were told they had only 20 minutes to pack their things before they were to be taken away. The family was loaded onto cattle cars, each packed with about 50 people, and no privacy. Separated from their father, who was sent to a prison camp, and their final destination unknown, the family was scared and uncertain of their future. After their long journey, the family was hungry and filthy when they arrived at the work camp in the Arctic of Siberia. Lena and her family were forced to live and work in harsh conditions. Lena was given the job of digging beets for food in the bitter cold temperatures. Lena hated beets. Determined to survive, Lena uses her drawing talent to record her experiences and keeps her drawings hidden. She hopes for them to one day make it to her father, so he may see what his family has gone through and that they are still alive. Throughout the story, Lena shares some of her earlier happy memories from times past. It is these lighter moments that bring good balance to the story, as the book is heavy with terror and sorrow, pain and suffering. Between Shades of Grey is an extremely important historical work of fiction based on true events that have long since been forgotten. Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys is an enlightening and powerful piece of literature that will shock and astound even those that thought they knew well the history of Stalin's oppression of Lithuania. Anne Frank, the Anne Frank House Authorized Graphic Biography by Sid Jacobsen and Ernie Colon. They had to be very quiet during business hours, for fear someone might hear them. This authorized graphic biography tells the story of Anne Frank, a young Jewish girl, as told by herself from her original diary written during World War II. What is unique about this version of Anne's story is that the authors also share the early lives of Anne's parents, her younger years in Frankfurt, the family's move to Amsterdam, and the time she spent in what has become known as the Secret Annex. The authors also provide information on Anne's deportation and her death in Bergen-Belsen. One of the most important differences between this graphic novel and the publication of Anne's journal is the way in which the authors intertwined important political events throughout the story. These portrayals deliver a glimpse of the history of the rise of Hitler and Nazism, war advancements, and the occupation of European countries, and how these events affected Anne, her family, and the others who shared the annex as well. In the story, Anne describes her time spent in hiding from the Nazis. She tells of having to be quiet during business hours so they wouldn't be heard, of the secret passage behind the bookshelf, of her father's employees sending food during lunch hours, and later of falling in love with a young boy who also stayed in the annex. The novel ends with information about the publication of her diary, the preservation of the annex, and its becoming a museum, as well as the death of Anne's father. The illustrations are intense, inviting, and entertaining. The authors did an excellent job of keeping the illustrations true to life. Anne Frank, the Anne Frank House Authorized Graphic Biography by Sid Jacobsen and Ernie Colon, is an educational and informative piece of literature that is sure to keep even the most cynical history scholar content. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. Here is a small fact. You are going to die. There couldn't possibly be a more gripping way to open a novel. In The Book Thief, author Markus Zusak appoints Death as the narrator, and Death does a remarkable job of delivering a picture of why some of our lives are chosen to end and why others are spared. Liesl Meminger is a young girl standing at her even younger brother's graveside when she quietly steals her first book. Soon thereafter, Liesl is sent to live with a foster family on Himmel Street in the small town of Mulching, Germany. When Liesl is teased at school for being unable to read, she asks Papa to help her, and he does so, graciously. Liesl's mama isn't quite as soft as Papa, often snapping at them both. One day, when Liesl is sent to deliver laundry to Mama's customer, the mayor's wife, Liesl is introduced to the most amazing sight, a whole room full of books. Little by little, Liesl makes herself comfortable in the mayor's mansion, spending some time in the library at each visit. When she is no longer permitted to provide laundry service, Liesl finds a way to steal the mayor's books. Her best friend Rudy is often seen by her side during these adventures. Soon after Liesl's arrival on Himmel Street, a Jewish friend of her parents arrives, and Mama and Papa must hide him from the Nazis. At first, Max stays in the spare bed in Liesl's room, and then, deciding it is safer, they send him to the basement. It is there, in the cold stone walls of the cellar, that Liesl and Max develop quite a unique friendship. When Papa gets in trouble for helping a Jewish man on the street, Max decides it's too dangerous for him to stay with the Memingers any longer. Around the time when Liesl's father is taken away to serve in the army, the air raids begin. Gathered together in the bomb shelter, Liesl remembers how the neighbors relaxed when her father played the accordion. And Liesl begins reading. And then death arrives once again. One of the most compelling and complete literary works of its kind, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, is sure to become a modern-day classic. These three gripping tales of human atrocity, suffering, and sorrow, told from the perspective of a young girl, are sure to provide any reader with new and exciting knowledge of an important part of history. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys, and Anne Frank, the Anne Frank House Authorized Graphic Biography by Sid Jacobsen and Ernie Colon.